One thing that's never discussed in the survival movement is clandestine manufacture. That is a key ingredient to any underground network's survival. The best example of that we can look at is the case of the meth lab. When I was handling hazardous material for the government and corporations, we did a lot of cleanup and removal of hazardous material, nuclear, chemical, and biological materials. One of the interesting people I worked with had a specialty. He cleaned up meth labs. Now, when criminals operated meth labs, they did something that was very, very related to guerrillas, covert military operations, CIA ops, and things like that. So what they would do is they would go into an area that you wouldn't expect them to be in, such as a neighborhood. They would buy a house. They would have a custodian couple occupy that home, sometimes with children. Then what they would do is make sure that the house they selected had a garage. So the couple had 1 or 2 vans in addition to their cars. They would back the van into the garage and unload materials. This way they're not under surveillance as to what comes in and goes out of the building. And then product would go out of the building in vans the same way, or cars that are inside the garage. That way nothing happens outside the building that's visible. The next thing they would do is cut a hole in the floor so they could access the crawl space. Or if the building had a basement, they would utilize that. If it's a basement, they would black out all the windows. If it's a crawl space, they would seal up the ducts so people could not look through the ventilation ducts into the crawl space. With the crawl space, they would access it by cutting a hole in the floor. That way, as they cooked the product, they would dump the leftover stuff, the containers, any leftover materials. They would arrange that in the crawl space, and they would actually pack it in there as tight as possible. That way they could utilize the site as long as possible. That way everything is contained, and once you reach the point you couldn't hide any more material in the crawl space of the basement, they would abandon that structure and just move on and set up another lab. Now, clandestine weapons manufacture, clandestine logistics, moving agents around a country and hiding people in a manner like the Underground Railroad did in the Civil War all work the same way. So, see if this is applicable to your survival operations. Please comment. We'll see you on the next video.